Peace and blessings, my brothers and sisters. My name is Dara Baldwin. I am the Senior Policy Analyst for the National Disability Rights Network. What is that, people say? First, I want to let you know a little history of me. I've been doing social justice work all of my life, right? But professionally since 2004. And I did criminal justice work before coming to the disability community in about 2009. And so when this group was convened, I kind of knew some of the organizations and people here, and it is so welcoming to be asked, to be invited, to be a part of this. I want to say solidarity to Simon, my Native American brother, and my sister Andrea, who talks about women and LGBTQ. People with disabilities are completely left out of this conversation as well. We're always an afterthought, and my sister on Faith, we come after you. Sometimes not even after you. We don't even get invited to those meetings. But anyway, it is an honor to be here and to do this work. And I just want to give shout out to my sister Rebecca Coakley, who's the Executive Director of the National Council of Disability, who also works on this with me. NDRN, which is National Disability Rights Network, is the only disability group in DC for the policy groups, there's 122 of them, that actually does regular work on criminal justice and juvenile justice. We are the national organization for the protection and advocacy programs around the country. Those are the civil rights lawyers for people with disabilities. We are unique in the fact that we have 57 programs, one for every state, 50, one for every territory, 6, and to my brother Simon, we have one specifically for Native Americans. That was created about 10 years after we started because we found that, as Simon said, people with disabilities who are of Native American background have their own issues and concerns. So we created one just for that, and those attorneys there are Native Americans, and the social workers are Native Americans. So let us know if you need any help in that area. I'm here to talk about our issues and concerns, and being left out, the wonderful 21st century report that was talked about, we sent in 16 pages in reference to disability. We got 4 lines. 4 lines in that whole entire report. We were never asked to come in to talk about the report. The only time we got to come in and talk about the report was when we came with the Coalition for Police Reform. And then we got called in later, and some other groups came in and were involved. But we're always the afterthought. And those 16 pages I want to talk about here is a couple of things about disability and policing. We have issues and concerns with all law enforcement, not just police officers. Housing police officers treat our people horribly. In eviction and kicking them out, just living in the public housing, they have horrible interaction with housing police officers. People with disabilities are probably the lowest people on the socioeconomic status because of the low unemployment rate, the high unemployment rate, and the low employment rate. So many of them do not drive as well as have mobility issues. It's very hard for them to get cars that are accessible and things like that. So many people with disabilities take transit, they take public transit. We have horrible interactions with transit. So when we talk about law enforcement and the quote-unquote criminal justice system, for us, we're talking about all of these different law enforcement people, but also officers of the court. And I'm going to say, my dad's a cop, so I'm talking from years of living. My dad was the first lieutenant, black lieutenant in the city of East Orange, New Jersey, so I understand all of that part of it too, and where that comes from. But also, the court system, our public defenders and defense attorneys, treat people with disabilities hard. We have deaf people who get all the way to trial, and that's when I have a case where the judge looked down, the gentleman is signing to his friends, pray for me, hope I don't go to jail, and the judge looks at both of these attorneys and said, he's deaf, and they both look in their folder. That's a problem. Yes. This child made it all the way to trial. So those of you who are attorneys understand it takes a long time to get to trial. Yes. And we have people who are sitting in jail who are deaf, who are not getting their Title II, which is part of the ADA, communications. They're supposed to get assignments. Those people who have developmental disabilities and are probably, at a high school level of their thought and thinking, are supposed to get a social worker to come in and sit with them while they go through this process. So these things are not happening. And so that's also on the side of the officers of the court. So we are talking about the entire criminal justice system here. We also talk about interaction with the criminal justice system. It pains me and of course breaks my heart, all of the things that are happening here. We have the Garner family here and the killing. But again, for people with disabilities, I always talk about the 4 areas. One is just being a regular citizen, just rolling down the street, going down the street, and they ask people, I've seen it here in DC, ask for directions to some place and the officer says, do you really wanna go there? Can you really get in that place? It's disrespectful. They have rights. So it's very interesting to see that. When they are witnesses to crime, they are not thought of to be able, intelligent enough to know how tall somebody was, what color that person was, if they had a jacket on, they drove in this kind of car. They're not thought to know those things. And that goes into being a victim. When they are victims of crime, we have people with developmental disabilities, or people who just don't look like everyone. They say, you couldn't possibly rape, nobody wants to rape you, don't worry about it, lady. Men and women. Men at a high rate with developmental disabilities get raped at a very high level. They are victims of crime. It's usually somebody they know. Unfortunately, it's people who work in these facilities with them, and they are ignored. Just like 20 years ago, some people tell you 50, black women were ignored when they walked into a white police station and said, I was raped by a white man. They said, no, look at what's happening in Oklahoma with this police officer. So we have hundreds and thousands of people with disabilities who are harmed and victimized every day, and the law enforcement does not listen to them. They don't take their cases. This is a problem for us. And then, of course, being suspects. So, of course, they're dying at a higher rate. Eric Gardner, he had asthma. That is a disability. That was something that he had. People don't want to talk about that part of it. The intersection of disability. People with disabilities are all things. They're all races. They are all religions. They are LGBTQI.
Yes.
They are of low socioeconomic status, of high socioeconomic status, educated, not educated. All of these things are happening to them. So we, as PNAs, we cannot work on the civil rights side of, on the criminal justice side of this. We work on the civil rights side of it. What I was talking to you about before, when someone's being adjudicated, we try to make sure there's some, communications and sign language going on there. And then, of course, in the system, right, when you get into the jails and systems, which we're not talking about here now, but that's our job, is to make sure there's no abuse and neglect being done inside the institutions. And John, you spoke about our work and great work with Olmstead and the Department of Justice in getting people out of institutions. And that's why I'm gonna kind of end this on, in this work, when we do disabilities and talk about law enforcement, criminal justice, is mental health, mental health, mental health. This is the one area where I have to say, can y'all tone down the mental health conversation a little bit, because there are other disabilities and people who are being killed. People who are deaf cannot hear a police officer when he says, stop, turn around, put your hands up, or any command that they're giving. And there are processes to change that are being used around other countries, but not here. And again, not put into the 21st century report, because we only got 4 months. But anyway, so there are things that are there. People with epilepsy, people with autism, they may appear drunk, but they're not. They just need their medication or something is going on. People with autism, you can, police officers, and I understand it, look at me when I'm talking to you. They don't look at their own mother when they're talking to their mother, or their siblings, or their friends. So that's very hard for them to do. And that's CIT training, crisis intervention training, mental health. In the statute, it clearly says mental health and developmental disabilities, but you never hear developmental disability training. And we would like to open that. It should be all disabilities, people with physical disabilities. And so the ADA, which is Americans with Disabilities Act, celebrated its 25th anniversary this year. It was completely predicated on community integration. As our brother here was talking about before, Indians on reservations, Native Americans on reservations as prisons. People with disabilities many years ago were born and their parents were told just put them in an institution and let them stay there. So that is the thought process of this country. 1990, that's only 25 years ago that this community received its civil and human rights. 25 years is not a long time. So that thought process about culture is what's being taught to police officers, right? People don't think of people with disabilities in the community, so they're not used to this. There was one act that was done, the Architectural Barrier Act, which made curb cuts. So you could get into the restaurant, but then they could tell you can't eat here, because we don't want you eating here, we don't like the way you look. So they had no civil and human rights. And so this concept and this culture is what is being brought upon people with disabilities, and we need to change that. We need to make sure that everyone understands they have civil and human rights. They should be treated like all other people. And as we're sitting here talking today, they should also not be killed at a higher rate, along with all our other brothers and sisters in this instance. So the last thing I'll say is there's a saying in the disability community, nothing about us without us. That's the other thing. do not make policies about people with disabilities without having them at the table. And the National Disability Rights, we completely believe in that. We have advocates who are part of all of our PNA systems. If you wish to join one, please let me know. And there are flyers on the table about